In the beta pre-release of Minecraft, Mojang would make a decision that would change the game forever. This was the update that introduced enchantments to the game. Enchantments added a healthy layer of complexity to the game. They were a unique way of differentiating two of the same tools from each other. There were simpler ones like the sharpness enchantment for swords and axes, which makes your swords and axes sharper, increasing their damage by half a heart per level, and that's it. Then there were slightly more complex ones such as Silk Touch, causing some blocks to drop themselves as items rather than their usual drops when mined. Bookshelves, glass, ender chests, ice, and beehives for example. However, this came at the cost of making your tool mutually exclusive with Fortune to avoid exploits, I assume. Needless to say, the addition of enchantments was an absolute success and players were happy. But when there's variety, there's bound to be some that are better than others. Much like I've said in my video about Minecraft foods, having plenty of options is like having kids. You will always pick favorites. You're more likely to prefer smite and sharpness for your sword unless you had arachnophobia. Trident enchantments are cool, but I prefer loyalty above all else. While some enchantments rose to popularity because they were simply better than others, there was one enchantment that rose to the top for infamous, controversial reasons. Before Swift Sneak in 1.19, before Soul Speed in 1.16, before every Trident enchantment in 1.13, our story begins in 1.9. This update reworked the entire combat system, a controversial change that requires a video of its own. But more importantly, this was the update that added mending to the game. Mojang may not have known at the time, but they've created a monster that would plague their game for many years to come. Welcome to episode 1 of Minecraft's most controversials. For this episode, we will be talking about mending, an enchantment that either ruined the game or made it better depending on who you ask. Before we go into the goods and bads of mending to explore why it became such a controversial enchantment, here's a quick refresher on what it is and what it does. Mending is a treasure enchantment, meaning it is unobtainable from enchantment tables. You could only obtain them as books from jungle temples, stronghold libraries, ancient cities, as well as a rare drop from fishing. They could also be obtained as tools enchanted with mending from end cities. In the simplest terms, mending allows you to use XP in order to repair your equipment. The more XP you get, the more durability gets restored. Now if all of this sounds really freaking good, that's because it is. On a tier list of enchantments, no enchantments in the game would even come close to the level of mending. And to understand why, let's compare mending to 3 other unique enchantments: Fire Aspect, Unbreaking, and Looting. I picked these 3 as examples for specific reasons. A comparison against each of them would highlight the 3 main reasons why mending is quite literally in a league of its own. Let's start with Fire Aspect. Fire Aspect is one of my personal quality checks for enchantments because it stands out as an enchantment for the wrong reasons. Enchanting your sword with Fire Aspect turns it into a double-edged sword. It is one of the OG enchantments added in beta pre-release and has remained unchanged throughout all of Minecraft history. Fire Aspect made any sword or axe ignite their targets on fire, dealing an extra 3 to 7 hearts of fire damage on top of your usual attacks. Serving you cooked meat the way you preferred. Medium rare and below for the caveman, medium well for the refined, and well done for the COVID patients because they're tasteless. In Bedrock, Fire Aspect can also be used to light up candles, campfires, and TNTs. This even works with enchantment books. But when I say enchanting Fire Aspect makes things a double-edged sword, I mean it. Unless you have fire resistance, Fire Aspect makes your enemies take 3 to 7 hearts of damage extra, but it also makes them deal 3 to 7 extra to you. Mending doesn't have any downsides. Unlike Fire Aspect, mending is all reward with no risk. There is a little trade-off in that half of your XP is used for repairs, but it is a tremendously less dangerous risk compared to being barbecued alive. What's more important is that XP usually isn't a problem for the casual player, and even less of a problem for psychopaths like me who kill everything they see. Therefore, mending in general is better because you don't have to worry about any significant risk or downsides to having it on something. However, it isn't the only enchantment in the durability side of things, which brings us to Unbreaking. Mending's much older cousin that's been in his world for much longer than Mending has, but eventually grew apart from when they started sharing conspiracy theories on WhatsApp. Sorry, was that too specific? Basically, unbreaking also helps with the durability of equipment. It turns shears from a fragile tool that breaks when you use it on anything harder than a marshmallow into a slightly less fragile tool that breaks on anything harder than 4 marshmallows. Instead of a guaranteed repair on XP like mending, unbreaking adds RNG into the mix. On average, each level of unbreaking adds an extra 100 to 300% of a tool's durability, doubling to quadrupling its use. This meant that unbreaking was only better than mending in tools that are super fragile and commonly don't receive XP in their uses, like flint and steel, shears. Yeah, that's about it. Mending is a godsend for unlucky people because it was a guaranteed fix with no random chance, making it better than unbreaking in almost every way and a much better enchantment overall. This leads us to our final comparison, looting. Looting is also a super strong enchantment, so strong in fact that enchantment XP costs are noticeably higher whenever it is involved. It helps you with super important drops such as ender pearls, blaze rods,
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪
tridents, and wither skeleton skulls. Nothing is more frustrating than fighting mobs for hours on end only to not get the resources you need because RNG hates you. Looting increases the maximum for common drops by 1 per level. A zombie will drop 0 to 2 rotten flesh, but with a looting tree sword, they drop 0 to 5. With equipment and other rare drops increasing by 1% per level. TLDR, looting strong, looting good, ooga booga, me use looting, me get more food, me happy. But despite all of this, looting will never be on the same level as mending, because unlike mending, looting is exclusive to swords and axes. Mending will always be above strong enchantments such as looting and fortune, because just like unbreaking, mending could be applied to everything. It's like having a battle between a super strong sniper rifle that is super accurate but it can only shoot scarecrows, versus a nuke that's also, like, super accurate. Not the best analogy, but you get the point. So mending is really good. So good in fact that it's arguably the best enchantment. But why is it controversial? Well, these comparisons combine into the first controversial point of mending. It's controversial because it's arguably the best enchantment. Did you get a diamond sword? Might as well throw mending on it and let the XP from mobs make it unbreakable. Did you just upgrade to a netherite pickaxe? Remember to put mending on it. You wouldn't want to find 4 ancient debris again now, would you? Wow, you just got a full set of netherite armor? It will break and crumble to dust, leaving you completely vulnerable to attacks from racism, terrorism, sexism, ableism, and Islamophobia. But there's an easy solution for this. Mending! A point of controversy is that mending is so good, you kind of just put it in everything. They're like Neapolitan ice cream. There's something for everyone. Vanilla for the boring, chocolate for those with low standards, and strawberry for those who pretend to like it. Mending has never really been a choice as to which equipment you should enchant it with. With an enchantment this overpowered, it's more of which enchantment do you add mending to first and which later. You simply can never have enough of it. There's no such thing as too many mending books. It's simply so good that you just can't ignore it. To give you a sense as to how broken mending is, in 1.11, 2 updates after the addition of mending, Mojang will make infinity and mending mutually exclusive on bows. That's right, Mojang quickly discovered that giving players an infinite durability, infinite arrow bow was bad. It won't even surprise me if mending could be used to fix things other than your equipment. 6 out of 9 marriage counselors recommend mending to fix your broken marriage. The other 3 play Terraria. In summary, controversial point 1 was that mending is too versatile and most likely overpowered. Players unanimously agree that it is one of the best enchantments, with people calling it indispensable, the most valuable, as well as the best and most vital enchantment in the game. Some players felt that mending broke the immersion of Minecraft. It made them attached to a single tool. For them, making tools, using them to get resources until they break, and then replacing those tools with said resources was part of the fun. Mending discouraged exploration and collecting resources required to make the equipment. Mending ironically made Minecraft less mining and less crafting. Which makes sense. If I had a pickaxe and I were to enchant it with mending, this pickaxe will most likely last me throughout my entire survival world. And I will do my absolute hardest to make sure it never goes below 1 durability so I can repair it later. The game simply had to be centered around mending or be affected by it. But some would argue that mending actually made the game more fun to play. Rather than turning Minecraft into a Korean MMORPG where you'll be spending more time grinding than actually playing the game, it made Minecraft the sandbox that it is. With mending on your tools, you had the time and freedom to do whatever you wanted. In a sense, mending allows you to skip the parts of the game you have to do and lets you do the parts of the game you want to do. Mending is an essential quality of life enchantment for mid to late gameplay that define how the player approach projects and builds, which also makes sense. If I hate strip mining for diamonds, which I do, mending allowed me to skip getting the resources needed to get the equipment and allow me to do whatever I want. And that's spending my time raiding and conquering villagers. Have I ever mentioned how much I love tormenting villagers in my videos yet? I like enslaving their entire populations for cheap labor while I melt the iron golem protectors into iron ingots which I sell back to the villagers as a means of tax evasion. While we're on the topic of villagers, these arguments on both sides will be incomplete without the second point of controversy, mending's rarity. It's arguably the best enchantment, so surely it has the rarity to limit such a broken feature to only mid and late game. It will only be found in the likes of treasure chests and rare fishing drops since mending is a treasure enchantment. Or at least it's supposed to be. What the hell is it doing in the hands of librarians?
Don't they know I'm busy spoiling myself?
Who would win? A super rare enchantment book only found in ancient historical structures containing magical text that makes your tools unbreakable and infinite. Or Squidwards? A point of controversy is that mending could also be obtained through villager trading. Before 1.14, librarians existed but their trades were locked, so you basically hoped that they had the enchantment you wanted. In other words, your best bet was trapping 2 villagers in a breeder and having the freak out smart librarian babies. Eventually, one of them will give you mending, while the other librarians study history or some other failing degree, I don't know. So mending's power was kind of kept in check with its rarity. The easy way to obtain them was still extremely troublesome, which is why for some players, it is a point of worry that recent updates have made it easier and easier to obtain. 1.14 reworked villager trading. By cycling workstations with a lectern, you will eventually get a librarian that will give you mending for a cheap price. This further reinforced the anti-mending viewpoint. With a viable, renewable method of obtaining mending, you were discouraged from exploring the world for resources. Mending was so good, there was practically no reason not to farm for it when it was this easy. You could just kidnap a few villagers, stay in your base forever, and never have any incentive to explore the outside world again unless you want to. Which leads us on to the third point of controversy. Is mending a problem, or is it a fix? To quote the user Zori Sable, which I hope I pronounced right, mending is a quality of life enchant. It doesn't make you any stronger in PvE or PvP, it doesn't have any effect on the actual difficulty of the game. All it realistically does is mean you spend less time grinding out gear. Personally, I remember the days before mending existed. I am quite happy to not be spending as much of my Minecraft time grinding out yet another fortune pig as we did then. As a purely quality of life enchant with no real impact on difficulty, it should be relatively easy to acquire and works just fine as it is. This highlights the third point. Is mending a problem that greatly affected Minecraft's gameplay, or is it a soft fix for an underlying problem? One could always argue that the root cause is the durability mechanic of Minecraft, and that removing mending would be ignoring the main underlying issue. Durability turns the game into an endless grind, forcing you into a cycle of obtaining resources for your tools, using the tools, then obtaining resources to replace said tools. Is it the fault of mending that players have flocked to it to avoid durability issues? Or is it the fault of the durability mechanic itself that drove players to mending? For comparison, let's take Breath of the Wild. It's a very niche game. You may have heard about it, but it's made by a very small indie company. In this game, every one of your weapons has limited durability and will break no matter what you do. In fact, this game has a much harsher durability system. There are no repairs or enchantments to help. However, there's the Master Sword, the completely unbreakable weapon, but it requires some time to regain its durability after use. I'm sure you can draw a bit of a parallel between the Master Sword and mending. There's the argument that Breath of the Wild's durability system encourages players to explore and find new weapons to replace the old ones that will break. But there's also the argument that the durability is so fucking terrible that once players obtain the Master Sword, they'll begin to use it for literally everything and save their other weapons for when they actually needed them. Is the Master Sword too strong and too good, or does it highlight an underlying issue with the game's durability system? Maybe if things didn't break so easily like a condom, people wouldn't have to use something that's literally unbreakable. Maybe if you, the viewer, didn't enjoy this video so much, you wouldn't have had to smash the like button. If the durability system of Minecraft wasn't so flawed, would players still be using mending as much as they do today? It's a fair question with no right answer to it. But there is a perfect example for this, and I want a show of hands. Has anyone actually used phantom membranes to repair your elytras? Or maybe explored other NCT ships just to replace the elytra we have? Most likely, you use mending, with maybe 1 or 2 phantom membrane repairs. Case in point, because durability is a bitch. Mending was probably the cure to an issue that unfortunately had side effects of their own. This leads us to the final point of controversy. Controversial point 4 is about the massive negative impact mending has had on diamonds as a resource. There are multiple factors that contributed to diamonds losing their specialty. I've mentioned plenty of them in my video about why diamonds aren't special anymore. But the major factor that I forgot to mention was the mending enchantment. Unlike iron, where if you enchanted your iron tools with mending, you still needed it for other recipes such as hoppers, pistons, and anvils. Or gold, which... Wait, why the hell are you even enchanting your gold tools with mending? Point being, iron and gold had other recipes that mending could never touch. Mending didn't apply enchantments on your tools, anvils did. Mending can't receive XP and heal you as a player, golden apples and golden carrots do. Unfortunately, diamonds weren't as lucky. We used diamonds for diamond tools and enchantment tables. When mending was introduced, it removed any real reason you had to get diamonds from caves, since any tool with mending is almost guaranteed to last forever. A mending enchanted helmet is a permanent 5 diamonds you will never need. And if you had a full set of mending tools, you no longer need diamonds at all. You don't need diamonds to replace your tools because you can't replace something that is irreplaceable. Players felt like they never needed to go mine for diamonds anymore once they had mending, which once again further solidified the arguments on both sides. Less exploration, diamonds less special, anti-mending. More time for other things, diamonds are a means to do those other things, pro-mending. This also explains why mending is the most controversial amongst veteran players, myself included. As longtime fans of Minecraft playing through both pre-mending and post-mending eras, having experienced both sides is what makes a lot of us feel strongly about the enchantment. We've watched mending make diamonds fall from an absolutely legendary resource in its prime into a useless resource acting as currency in multiplayer servers today. Nostalgia plays a part, and I suppose for some long-time players, seeing something they used to look up to a very high status be reduced to money for a capitalistic society, you can kind of see why some people feel so strongly for or against mending. It's kinda sad, but understandable. But hey, that's just what players generally think about mending. After hearing these points, what are your thoughts? Do you like them, or do you think Minecraft would have been better off without them? Do you think Mojang should nerf them or leave them as is? Pro-mending or anti-mending? I personally think that mending was a good addition. Now don't get me wrong, all the reasons listed so far are fair concerns about mending being a controversial feature. But I see mending as something where the good outweigh the bad. I'm someone who really enjoys having projects to do. I like having automatic farms and I like having a little bit of a story in my survival worlds. But I definitely do see what they mean when they say mending took away the explorative aspects of Minecraft. I didn't go outside and touch grass that often when I discovered how easy mending was to obtain. For every survival world I created, I found myself simply trading with villagers, stonking my way to get the diamond gear needed for the projects I wanted to do. To me, mending was an enchantment that fixed Minecraft by ironically breaking the game. And there is no bigger evidence for this than the undeniably negative impact they've had on diamonds as a resource. But it's important to note that mending isn't alone on this. I've mentioned that there were plenty of other factors that led to diamonds' downfall. Mending is just one of the many reasons as to why diamonds eventually stopped being special. Which is why you should check out this video where I cover everything else that contributed to making diamonds less special than it used to be. That'll give you the full story of what happened to diamonds that made them lose their value in the game today. I'll see you there. or at least until 1.20.